So today's presentation is going to be about Alcibiades, who is a Athenian politician and statesman that was alive between 450 BC and 404 BC. He played some important roles during the Peloponnesian conflict between Athens and Sparta and was actually served on both sides during that conflict. So to start off, I'll talk a little bit about his Alcibiades' early life. So he was born in Athens and was the last member of the Alcibiades family, who were a branch of the Neaides. They were a wealthy and powerful noble family in Athens and claimed to be descendants of the mythical character Alcmaeon. The Alcmaeonidae family played an important role in Athenian politics and specifically between the 7th and 5th centuries BC. For example, they helped overthrow an Athenian tyrant, establish the Athenian democracy, and towards the end of the power of this family, they provided generals for Athens in the Peloponnesian War. A significant event in Alcibiades' early life was the death of his father in either 446 or 447 BC. Whilst his father died whilst he was in command of the Athenian army at Coronia in Boeotia. The exact date of his death is unknown, but nevertheless, it is clear that Alcibiades was very young when it occurred. As a result, the statesman Pericles became responsible for raising Alcibiades. However, Pericles was often too occupied with political leadership to give Alcibiades the attention he needed at his young age, and this did have an impact on Alcibiades later in life. As Alcibiades was growing up, he began to be recognized for his striking beauty and keen wit. However, this did result in a level of arrogance, and he was often guilty of exhibiting selfish behavior. Some of this did relate back to obviously not having a father figure in his early years. Also in this time, he developed a close relationship with Socrates. They served together at Potidæa, where Socrates saved Alcibiades' life in combat. And then Alcibiades returned the favor and saved Socrates at the Battle of Delium in 424 BC. Their relationship blossomed and became so intense that at one point they were even suspected lovers. However, Alcibiades would eventually abandon Socrates in pursuit of a more glamorous style of politics that granted the sort of material and superficial rewards that Socrates so famously detested. Overall, Alcibiades could be described as a prominent statesman, orator, and then later on, he was an important general in the army. These gifts would play a major role in the second half of the Peloponnesian conflict, as he served as a strategic advisor, military commander, and politician for both Athens and Sparta. So, as mentioned before, Alcibiades gained his political presence in Athens during the Peloponnesian War. This was a major conflict in the ancient world and occurred between 431 and 404 BC. It was mainly between Sparta and Athens, but their allies were also involved. Sparta and Athens were the two most powerful city-states in the Greek peninsula at the time. So this obviously was a major conflict and did change the political landscape of Greece. During this period, Alcibiades began to be recognized for his courage in battles, as well as his speeches in the Ecclesia, which was the political assembly in Athens. In 420 BC, he was made a general in the Athenian army, and after being made so, he attempted to undermine the Athenian leader Nicias, who was pursuing peace with Sparta at the time. Alcibiades did not want peace, so he oversaw Athens entering into an alliance with Argos, Elis, and Mantinea. However, the alliance was swiftly broken after they lost to the Spartans at the Battle of Mantinea in 418 BC. After this event, Alcibiades was only able to avoid banishment by restoring his relationship with Nicias. He then later returned to Athenian politics in 416 BC after entering the winning chariot into the race at the Olympic Games. Extraordinarily, he also won second and fourth and entered a total of 7 chariots in the race, which was a new record at the time. Overall, this achievement brought him enormous fame and re-established his name in Athenian politics. In 415 BC, Alcibiades used his restored name and expressed his belief that Athens needed a strong foreign policy. He persuaded the Athenians to send an expedition to Sicily to defeat Sparta's ally, Syracuse. However, the expedition was a resounding failure and was a major turning point in the Peloponnesian War. The losses Athens sustained severely impacted their capacity to fight in later years, and Alcibiades was ultimately blamed for this defeat. Importantly, he was sentenced to death before embarking on the expedition for sacrilege and profanity towards the Eleusinian mysteries. He was not entitled to an inquiry before setting sail, so after the expedition proved to be a failure, he was forced to flee to Sparta to avoid this sentencing. So the next stage of his life was Alcibiades while at Sparta. So after defecting to Sparta, Alcibiades began advising them. He ensured they sent reinforcements to aid Syracuse and made sure they reinforced Decelia, a town in Attica. Both these moves later played significant roles in Sparta's eventual victory in the war. Alcibiades also played a role in causing political unrest in Athenian cities and as well as the cities of Athens' allies. For example, he stirred a revolt in Ionia, an important ally of Athens. Moreover, it was during this period that Alcibiades gained fame for his prowess with women. The most significant of these was the seduction of the wife of the Spartan king Agis II. However, despite multiple political successes, Spartan politicians eventually turned against him, forcing him yet again to flee, and this time to the Persian Empire in 412 BC. So, after fleeing Sparta, Alcibiades resided in Sardis, a city in the Persian Empire, as said before, but kept a strong association with Greece and specifically Athens. In 411 BC, he organized an oligarch coup in an attempt to strip power from the Athenian democracy and return it to the wealthy elite. Alcibiades was acting under the impression that if the coup was successful, Athens would gain the support of Persia. He believed this because some Persians, such as Tissaphernes, wanted to see an end to the Athenian democracy. The coup was eventually successful, and a temporary oligarchy was implemented in Athens, known as the 400. However, Alcibiades was discarded by the oligarchs who had seized power, resulting in him remaining in exile. Alcibiades was eventually recalled, but this time by the Athenian fleet. They remained loyal to the Athenian democracy, but were so desperate of Alcibiades' skills, they were willing to look past his involvement in the oligarch coup. They decided to make this move because despite all the political changes, Athens was still engaged in a conflict with Sparta, and they were desperately in need of his skills. So Alcibiades proved himself useful to the Athenian navy in Athens through a period of recovery from 411 to 408 BC. Athens secured victories in the Hellespont at Abydos in 411 BC, as well as at Cyzicus in 410 BC. They later secured a vital grain route from the Black Sea, which increased the influx of supplies into Athens. Alcibiades used these successes to justify his return to Athens in 407 BC, and after proving his abilities while in exile, he was given control of the conduct of war. In 406 BC, after gaining in 406 BC, after gaining the responsibility of conducting the war against Sparta, Alcibiades left the Athenian navy under the command of his helmsman Antiochus. This proved to be a mistake, as Antiochus attempted to prove his worth by making a rash move and drawing the Spartans into a naval combat. The resulting battle was known as the Battle of Notium, and it occurred in 406 BC, which was a significant Spartan victory as Sparta sent far more ships than Antiochus was anticipating. This defeat bolstered Alcibiades' political enemies, who, as a result, had him driven out of power and forcing Alcibiades to retire to a castle in Thrace. The next major blow came to Athens in 405 BC, when Lysander, a Spartan naval commander, launched an assault at Aegospotami. This assault resulted in the effective destruction of the Athenian navy, which had typically been the dominant force at sea throughout the Peloponnesian War. The Battle of Aegospotami marked the end of this dominance by the Athenian navy, and they were never able to recover from these losses. This event marked the beginning of the end of the Peloponnesian War, and sensing Athens' imminent defeat, Alcibiades fled to Phrygia, a city under the domain of the Persian Empire. However, despite fleeing Greece, he was not able to escape the influence of his Spartan enemies. In 404 BC, they convinced the Persian governor satrap Pharnabazus II to have him killed. The satrap Pharnabazus obliged, and the task was carried out in the same year by a group of Persian soldiers. So overall, Alcibiades led an eventful life. He played a significant role in Greek politics during the Peloponnesian War. Some historians even credit Sparta's victory to him because the moves he made whilst in Sparta proved vital for their overall success against the Athenians. As mentioned before, he was a skilled orator and statesman, and his unfortunate end was a result of the many political enemies he had required throughout this time period. And just to show the bibliography and the sources that I used for this presentation. So thank you.